Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president.
We will decide who comes to this country and the circumstances in which they come.
I mean,
I know you want to ban our national flags, but we're going to wave you goodbye.
What does confrontational mean? It means you'll fight for what you believe.
Enough was enough! And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother!
It is not merely our privilege to be strong, it is our duty to be strong.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Commanding the Narrative. My name is Stephen Tripp. Thank you to everyone who are watching live on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. If you're watching this later on, welcome as well. If you want to contribute today, you can contribute in the live chat, ask your questions, have your say, and at some point today I'll also put the link in if you want to call in and ask a guest a question. But to kick things off, I'll let you know how you can support us here at Commanding the Narrative, like I always do every single time. It is by going to Buy Me a Coffee. Now, if you can go to Buy Me a Coffee and throw us a few dollars, it helps to pay for the stream, it helps to pay for the website, and also, most importantly, it gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling inside, which is very important, just like Katie McCallum did this week. She said, "Dear Stephen and Adam, here's a tiny bit of warm and fuzzy love for you both. Keep up the amazing work. You guys make me feel warm and fuzzy every time I listen to you. Much love from Katie in Queensland." Well, Katie bought us 20 coffees, so thank you very much, Katie. Much appreciated. And also, Sal Edwards bought us 20 coffees this week. She said, "Thanks for providing a platform that helps raise awareness and understanding of how the political systems affect the everyday lives of Australians and for encouraging everyday Aussies to stand up and take part." Well, thank you, Sal. It's much appreciated, and I'm sure you're doing some great work. I know you are doing some great work out in your community as well. If you want to stay up to date with everything that we're doing with the ex-candidates or Commanding the Narrative or Global Discussion Forum or any articles that I might write anywhere around the world, head to commandingthenarrative.com. Very easy to remember, commandingthenarrative.com. Top right-hand corner, you can hit the sign-up button and you'll get a weekly newsletter with all the upcoming events, articles, podcasts, all the information. Don't rely on social media. Head straight to the website. It's the best resource for you to keep up to date with everything. Also, coming up, I need to let you know about the Environment and Energy Forum at the Guildford Leagues Club on Sunday, September 29th, between 1 and 5 p.m. I'm hoping to twist the arm of our guest today to get her along as well. We're going to have Di Lee speaking, Matthew Camanzuli, Craig Kelly, a host of speakers, some nuclear experts. We have Dr. Mark Ho already lined up for that, Councillor Steve Christou, Wade Northhausen from Billboard Battalion, and also Kevin Lockray. As you know, if you've been following this podcast, you know all about Kevin and how great Kevin is. So, look, the significance of this event, it's going to be in Chris Bowen's electorate of McMahon. Look, I think this battle with the reckless rollouts of renewables is the battle is in Sydney, where a lot of these MPs are. So if you can get out to Guildford, we want to make a big stand. Please jump onto the Eventbrite link. I'll put it in the show notes and get your tickets, and we hope to see you there. Also, just lastly, just before we get to our guests, I'll let you know about the Light newspaper as well. If you want to be a distributor to the Light, please head to thelightaustralia.com. Their new edition is out. It's got some great authors in there. Senator Ralph Babette, Senator Malcolm Roberts, even a little guy named Stephen Tripp has an article in there. So if you want to become a distributor for the Light, please head to this website. If you're in Sydney or around the Northern Beaches, you can call the number 0406 861 816. There's a pallet or two pallets actually that have already been paid for. All we need is distributors, so please call that number 0406 861 816, and please get in contact with Paul, and he can set you up to be a distributor. But today's episode, we've got a very accomplished journalist, writer, a former media advisor in the Canberra Parliament. Her name is Vikki Campion. She's been a strong advocate for a lot of rural communities and a lot of just, everyday battlers. So it'd be good to talk to her today. Let's welcome her on to Commanding the Narrative. Vikki, how are you today?
I'm really well. Thank you so much for having me on, Stephen. It's
No,
great to be here. I'm very excited about your forum coming up right in the heart of McMahon. That should be amazing.
yes.
And I hope that it gives Chris Bowen something to think about, because he definitely, I often look at him and just wonder how it is that he gets reelected.
You know, I was going to ask this later in the show, but now you've brought it up. You've worked in Parliament. Not only that, you've been a journalist. You've mingled with a lot of these people. Do they really believe this climate change narrative, or this climate change alarmism? Like, are they convinced, or is there something else nefarious going on?
There is a lot of them which are genuinely convinced that this is the end of days. This is the end of all of our time. There are those though that have that try and inject reality into the debate as much as they can. Probably Matt Canavan is probably the most truthy in saying, well, we're not going to change. I just don't believe that we can change everything: how we eat, how we drive, how we farm. This idea that we're going to stop eating red meat and we're only going to be eating lentils, and that we're going to adopt veganism in Australia as a population, which is left-wing veganism in Australia is very niche as it is, which is lucky, because if you were to understand our agriculture, there is no way that we could feed the world to the extent that we feed the world protein now. There is no way that we could do that with chickpeas and lentils. We just couldn't. We don't have the water. First up, we don't have the water. That's the number one thing. People like to demonize cotton growers, right? Because they think that it takes up too much water, particularly from that Murray-Darling river system. In the same way, there is no way that we could support a wholly vegan Australia and a wholly vegan world with our water resources. We're the driest continent on Earth. So I don't know how we got there, but this is one of the things. Like, there are politicians in that building who know we aren't going to change how we live, how we drive, how we eat, how we get around. For everything to change, and these aren't small changes, these are massive changes. Particularly this idea that everyone should give up meat, or and drive a coal-powered electric vehicle, battery vehicle, which it just doesn't work in remote areas. It just doesn't, because there's just not enough chargers. There's just not enough places to charge. There's not enough electricity, and the grid is not reliable.
Yeah.
I
was out at Oberon a couple of weekends ago at a symposium out there, and I was talking to someone, and they were telling me about how they overheard a conversation in a pub with just a regular battler talking to Allegra Spender, the member for Wentworth, and he asked her a very simple question. He said, "Can you change the temperature in Wentworth?" And she said, "Of course, no." And then he said, "Well, what makes you think you're going to change the temperature in Australia? Because we're still digging this coal out of the ground and sending it to countries like China and India. They're burning it. They're getting our cheap, reliable energy. It's still going into the same atmosphere. But then we're convinced that we're going to somehow change the world by importing all their expensive renewable, solar and wind components. I mean, it just defies logic, all this stuff."
It absolutely does. But I think, I was working there up until last year. I was going down working, and there's a lot of basically any major policy that's being rolled out, they'll open a committee room, and they'll have people from the department. They'll come in, and you can ask them questions about, well, how is this going to work in real life? One of the last ones of those that I went to, and the only reason I've stopped working down there is because my kids have to go to school. So, but it was the last one I went was for the battery systems, which are basically like plopping these big batteries into suburban environments to absorb the solar off people's rooftops and then have that as a community battery to give back. And it was very interesting to me that some of the staff who were most concerned about how this was going to fly in their electorates were teal or green or in a urban electorate, the very, very moderate liberals, the very, very left-wing Labor officers. They were the ones going, well, hang on, what about fire risks in our community? What about noise? What about amenity? All of these things actually mattered to them when it was right there. And they're talking about a single battery. The stuff that's being just vomited onto regional Australia, and I live in a renewable energy zone, and a zone which has been designated as basically as from going from agriculture and environment to industrialized intermittent power. That's the area that I'm in, right? So it's going from green and cattle and sheep and farms to now you're going to be hosting black photovoltaic fields. You're going to have these wind factories running at great detriment to your wildlife, particularly your bird life. We've got insane raptors here, wedge-tailed eagles. Oh yes, look, there it is. So look, so we've got, here we go. So on the screen you can see there where the renewable energy zone is in New South Wales. And last week, Madeline Bauer from the Daily Telegraph came to the New England, and she went to a couple of different community engagement, community consultancy sessions with the state body which is rolling out the transmission lines, which is Energy Co or ENCO, and revealed that they were trying to force a 94-year-old blind woman to sign away the rights to her house. She spoke to a whole bunch of different landowners. I shouldn't call them landholders because no one's holding the land. We own it, right? We're the landowners. So on the back of her awesome journalism, I decided to jump into some of their special determinations and check this out. So they have a special determination of the New South Wales Remuneration Tribunal, which shows that they have 2 bureaucrats on more than the freaking Premier, the Energy Minister, or even the Deputy Prime Minister, Richard Marles. So
you wrote this article in the Daily Telegraph recently. So the figure was $464,058. I don't know where the $58 comes from.
That's they're very specific at the New South Wales Remuneration Tribunal.
Yeah, but then you go and list these salaries for Chris Minns. I mean, over $400,000. Penny Sharp, who's the Energy Minister, $333,000. The Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles, $416,000. I mean, so the bureaucrats are earning more than the politicians.
Correct, and this is what you're getting in so many places, but particularly within this climate energy sector. It is, and it's like, you guys, you need to have a look at just what like it's like sorry, I've just lost my train of thought there just for a sec. Sorry about that, everyone.
Yeah.
But like when I write about this, they come down on me so freaking hard, and it's like you just get the weight of everyone just attacking you. You're a climate change denier, you're a Karen, it's all the labels and it's all of this attack. And then when you read the extraordinary numbers behind it, and there's the amount that people are getting paid, it's like, of course they don't want me to talk about how
Yeah.
political crap.
Yep.
Of course not. The other thing in that story, and this is what made me super wild, is that on top of all of this, if you look at this was data that I found in Energy Co's annual financial statement. I don't know why I've not looked into it before. $48 million is how much they spent from New South Wales Treasury, so this is New South Wales taxpayers, for consultants in 1 year for the 2022-2023 financial year. This includes stuff like Deloitte got $2.5 million, including $2 million just for accounting and taxation advisory on the Central Arana New England res. Are they actually saying that there's not a single accountant in Orange or Dubbo that would have been able to provide them with advisory services? You've got
but they're building new footpaths out there for these people, so you can't ask for too much.
You're getting a footpath. You're getting a footpath.
Or a new sandpit or something like that.
Then you've got when I was going through all the companies that were getting these millions of dollars worth of consultancy fees, all of them were based in Sydney. All of them were they're not headquartered in Parramatta. They've got nice views over the harbour. They're in Macquarie in Macquarie Street with views over Circular Quay. They've got one of them, WSP Petrati Limited, which is headquartered in Canada. It's got a Sydney office. That's a group that I have seen regularly in the New England res. They charged more than $5.8 million for biodiversity and environmental assessments. That is nuts. Like, when you see it in that context, you understand that's why they don't want me writing about this. That's why they want everyone to shut up, because this is so much money for them. This is so much money. And like, when you look at what the head bureaucrats paid, that's $9,000 a week. Like, can you imagine? I just couldn't imagine getting paid that much. I don't know what I'd
even know what to do with that money. What would you do with it all?
So many plants. So many plants.
But this is the problem. I mean, the more that you scratch beneath the surface of all this stuff, you're uncovering this waste of spending, environmental destruction, food security issues, property right issues. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, but they don't want you to look. They'll just label you. They'll put you in a box, climate denier or whatever, because they don't want you talking about this stuff, because they don't want the gravy train to stop.
No, and my favorite thing though is when they go on about, they say that, well, anyone who is against mass environmental destruction for these wind factories and solar factories, anyone who's against that, well, you have to be supported by the fossil fuel lobby. I always, when I'm talking to the other, because it's primarily mums, right, in this region who are fighting this stuff.
The same thing happens when we organise forums, and I say, I wish we were supported by the fossil fuel. Give us some money to do something. Like, I wish they would support us.
I'm like, why am I driving a 2013 RAV4 if we're supported by the fossil fuel? No, like they've got no idea. All of this is just, anything that anyone does is just in their is voluntary, basically, particularly for there's the weight of the consultation on people is just enormous, and that's something that I've just seen. People's mental health, just because you're working your full-time job. Often out in these regions, you're working a farm as well. which is what, today, my nails are all destroyed because I've been out there assisting. Some would argue how much, but assisting with the process. You've got your kids, then you've got that added factor of isolation, and then you're in this situation where you've got all these different foreign multinational companies saying to you, you as a resident have to tell us any problems that you have with our application to build a factory in what was green space. This is effectively a greenfield area. If this was in Sydney, there is no way that they would let this be destroyed. But because it's not, because it's in the bush, because the people here are predominantly poorer, they're predominantly less. That there's no one living out here is walking around with a law degree. Okay, like the people who live out here are trackers and they're musterers and they're farmers, and it's not to say that they're dumb. They're not. They're very, very, very smart. But we get treated like hicks, and we get treated with such disrespect, like basically ignored, or treated like fools, even with, and it's every project is the same. Like everyone who calls me, because I have been covering this now for 5 years. 5 years, this has been an issue where people have been calling and going, we don't know where else to go, because they're planning this wind factory beside me, or they're planning this solar factory beside me, or they're covering my home in transmission lines, or those are the three main ones out here at this point. It will get to the point where there'll be BESS and there'll be the community batteries and stuff like that, and then that will be another thing for people to really weigh up. But then it's like really interesting because we're told that they're not a fire, every concern is dismissed, to the point where if you say, oh, well, look, I don't want to live next to this thing because of the fire risk, they'll say it's not a fire risk. But then you'll see stuff like the Woolaroo solar factory, which the ACT government, which boasts about being 100% renewable, which it's not, but which boasts about, oh, we're 100% renewable, puts in an objection against the Woolaroo solar farm because it is a fire risk.
But you're right, though, because I talked to people like Emma Bowman or Grant Piper out in the central West Arana, and they have to trawl through all these policy and proposal documents to just try to find some information about this stuff. Like, it's not readily available. And if you look at the 5 renewable energy zones in New South Wales, I mean, this is happening in other states as well. We know the most about the central West Arana. That's a 20,000 square kilometre space around Dubbo and Mudgee and all these little towns. But I can't find similar information for the same areas. Like the New England Renewable Energy Zone, do you know how big that's going to be? I mean, and the other thing as well.
Oh, sorry.
No, go on.
Oh, well, so it will. Do you mean in terms of how much is it going to generate?
Just in terms of the land print, like the area of this project.
No, but see, that doesn't even matter, because even though they've got the reses, they still put them in outside of that. As you would know, being in Oberon last week, where they've decided to get basically state-owned land and build a wind factory on that, to the point where they are going to be ripping down an existing war memorial so that they can drag these blades through the center of town. And they are ripping down trees which were planted to honor soldiers. The stuff which is happening to allow this transition is absolutely mind-blowing, and it is something that we are going to look back, and we are going to, and our children, and we're going to go, look at what we have lost. Look at what we have lost. It's because it's not just going to be, I mean, and because at the end of the day, the other thing is this is going to be our most expensive power. It's going to be intermittent power. And then to do it, we're going to destroy our farmland, our bushland, our war memorials, like, and
And it
then
is crazy because when we drove up to Oberon, we're going up all these windy roads and they're really in bad condition. And I got to Oberon and I was talking to one of the locals about where they're going to build a wind farm. And I hate calling them farms, wind project. And I said, because I've seen the footage of them transporting these massive big turbines up to these areas. And I said, how are they going to get them up there with all these windy roads? And they said, oh, well, they're going to build a new road. So it's all right for them to build roads for these projects. But when it comes to local safety and just providing them good infrastructure, that never happens. So they can spend money on these wind and solar projects. And these renewable energy zones, I mean, it admits on their Government Energy Co website that they're modern day equivalents of power stations.
That's exactly what they are. And the community was not given nobody came to the community and said, hey, is it okay if we just, change everything? We'll get rid of all your farms and just chuck in some power plants. This is the thing, like the other thing that there's a lot that there's no transparency about how big it's going to be. There's no transparency about how much it's going to contribute to the grid. There's a lot of muted language, stuff where they say up to $24 billion worth of development, up to 600,000 jobs, up to, it's like, well, that's very cute. So how many exactly? Because I can tell you exactly how many people are employed by agriculture. I can tell you exactly how many people have jobs right now. But you're just giving us these kind of, you're just pulling figures, like these incredible figures out of the air. We're 5 years into this transition. I do not know a single local person who has benefited from a job in renewable energy. I have met some people at the pub who were imported over from Ireland because they had experience on Irish places. Which were similar, and so they're working over here. But there's not a single local Sparky who's like, yeah, I'm on good coin now that I'm working for the solar factory. It's not happening. And
you're right about them not releasing the data, and if they do release the data, they quickly delete it. Now this is an example. This is a policy directions paper from the Victorian government back in March 2022, and it was advocating for offshore wind. Now, you have to scroll all the way down to page 19, and it admits on there, as part of the argument for saying we need offshore wind, that if they were to rely on onshore wind and solar to get to net zero in Victoria, they would need 70% of Victoria's agricultural land to get there.
Yes.
How can you imagine?
There was a similar one that was put out in Queensland that admitted the same thing. And this is the thing, we need hectares. This is talking about hectares and hectares of space, but also the transmission lines that, you need a lot of it for the wind and the solar, but then the amount that you also need for the transmission lines. And that's something where we can't get any clarity on whatsoever. We go to ENCO says we'll email you. They never do. They never come back to us. There are points where the line, so this is over our property. The line is going as one, then it splits over our property into two lines. So we have the benefit of two lines. It is hard not to take that personally. And then it goes back to one line. And we said to them, we're like, look, why? And
why does it split to two and then back to one?
Bushfire risk, but it's also not a bushfire risk, remember? We've been told it's not a bushfire.
So there must be something we're missing in all of this. Like,
there's something. But it is I mean, at the end of the day, this is what the worst thing is at the end of the day, people are being sucked into this thinking that it's going to make their bills cheaper. And this, if you look at how it's promoted as reliable renewables, when you can't have anything less true. we're talking about hugely expensive intermittent power. It probably will get cheaper at small points of the day for the short term until they have to replace it again, which they will, because we know that they have to replace it. We know that they have short life cycles. We know that they come to an end much more quickly than any other source of power, and we also know that their footprint is just enormous. This is, I mean, and it's just like, at what point are they going to realize that this is not working? Is it going, like, people are literally going to have to be without power and start going hungry. And this is it. We can't afford to lose any agriculture in this country. We just can't. You know, if you are out doing the shopping and you have the opportunity to buy something that's made in Australia, you absolutely need to be doing that. Like, that needs to, if you can afford it, that's what you need to be doing. And I know sometimes you can't, and that, you know, and you know, in that case, you've got to, the priority is always feeding your family. But if you've got the ability to buy Australian made, that's what we have to do.
Definitely. Look, I you know, I go out and speak to you know, people all the time at different events or whatever, and just try and get their gauge of how they're feeling. And you know, we're talking about, you know, the reckless rollout of these renewable projects and what people are up against for this. But it seems that we're getting bombarded with issues all around us from all different sides, whether it be cost of living or housing affordability or just bad leadership in this country and also other countries around the world. I mean, I've spoken to, you know, people in England and Canada and other countries that are facing similar issues. One of the things that I think flies under the radar and that we want to talk about today is this babies born alive issue.
Yes.
Now, I got an email from Senator Alex Antic. He's proposing a bill. It's a human rights children born alive protection bill, which would require healthcare practitioners across Australia to provide life-sustaining treatment to children born alive. And he gave some statistics. Between 2010 and 2020 in Queensland, 328 babies were left to die after failed abortions. It was 396 in Victoria. Do people realize that this is happening?
I think that it's something that they want to put a blind eye to be honest. There is a woman, her name is Professor Joanna Howe. She's a Rhodes Scholar.
Yeah.
And she has her research. She's amazing. She's a Rhodes Scholar, leading researcher, Professor Joanna Howe. She found between 2010 and 2020, 4,929 babies were killed between 20 weeks and birth. And in Queensland alone, 329 were born alive and left to die. It is something where so there's a couple of reasons why this has come up recently. One is Alex Antic, Matt Canavan, and there's another, Ralph Babette. Yeah, they had a Senate inquiry going on, which then led to Robbie Katter, the Katter Party member in Queensland, proposing a private members bill, which drew out an inquiry into that. It was at that inquiry that there was a midwife by the name of Louise Adsett who came out, and her testimony was.
I've actually got a couple of clips of her. I'll play one now just to put it all into context, because there's two main clips that I think are important.
We've had babies born alive after terminations from 15 to 22 weeks, born alive, gasping for air, moving and having a palpable heart rate, fighting for their lives as we are humans designed to do. From what I've directly witnessed or been told by my colleagues who have been present at the time, these babies were alive from anywhere from 2 to 20 minutes to 3 to 5 hours.
I mean, it's pretty horrific what's happening. I mean, if anyone's gone through, you know, having a child, whether you're a father or a mother, and how precious these babies are, and they're just these babies are going through horrific circumstances. I mean, shouldn't everyone be on board with providing them some sort of care?
It's one of those things which is just mind-blowing. It is mind-blowing to me. So the bureaucrats in charge claim that it is very few. They say they say, and I quote, induction is a method of abortion. So they treat induction and and dying alone as one of the methods of abortion. They also make the bureaucrats in charge also gave evidence at the state inquiry that the babies get what's called comfort care, which is basically they get wrapped up and held. However, midwife after midwife has gone to their representative association in various states, including Westmead in New South Wales, in Westmead, where a baby was found in a medical waste bin. They have come, midwife after midwife have said, this is happening, and they then the hospital bureaucracy and the administration says, oh well, it happens not much and very few, and it's just like, it doesn't matter whether it's very few or not. Like, it is an absolute disgusting. It's heinous that just in terms of how you would treat an animal, for example. If you're a vet and say one of your jobs is aborting feral cats, for example, right? You've got a feral cat, she's pregnant, and no one can look after these kittens. You've got something like 30,000 animals right now in animal shelters across Australia. Like, it is insane. They do abort animals frequently, but they don't abort them late and just leave them to die. They get the green dream, and they go off. What these senators were, when Ralph Babet put up his bill, all he was calling for was medical care. Like, all his motion was to recognize at least one baby is born alive every 7 days following a failed abortion and left to die, and that Australia's healthcare system is enabling these inhumane deaths, and for the Senate to condemn this practice, noting that babies born alive as a result of a failed abortion deserve care. That was it. That was all his motion was. And every single left-leaning party, the teals, who would do anything for koalas, the Greens, who will do anything for the whales, the moderate Liberals were the ones who were voting against this, because the reason that they're doing it is because they want to turn a blind eye to it. Nobody wants to acknowledge that it's happening. Like, it's much easier to just call it abortion and say, oh, well, it's a woman's right. But this, at the end of the day, once that baby is outside a woman's body, that baby has their own rights, does it not?
Yeah. Well, you would think so. I mean, it's just obvious.
It's just.
See, there's probably people listening to this and saying, "Oh, well, look, of course the babies are going to be provided, medical treatment if they're born alive. Of course that would happen." Well, back to Louise Adset. I mean, she paints it very, very clearly that this is not happening. This is another clip from her hearing speech.
All right. Sometimes babies born alive after an abortion are put into witches' hats and are covered, taken out of the room, and die while in that witch's hat. This is distressing to many of the midwives, as they are unable to provide any medical care for the baby, but are limited to providing comfort care only, which is wrapping and holding the baby.
So just on that, so midwives, so if you're like a neonatal surgeon, for example, you can administer morphine to the baby, which is, if anyone who's ever done any end of life care will know that that's kind of how you help people on their way out the other side of life, right? If we're talking about people who are terminal and have cancer and are very, very old, neonatal professionals can administer morphine to these aborted babies, but they don't, because they're not there, because our hospitals are so understaffed, and this is why they don't want it, because they know that the bureaucrats know that if you admit that this is happening to babies who are born alive following an abortion, then it brings into light a whole bunch of stuff that people don't want to acknowledge.
But what is the human toll of this? Like, not only obviously it would be traumatic for the babies, but the people that are left behind, the midwives, the mothers, the fathers, the hospital staff. What is happening to these people?
Well, this is it. They live on with these nightmares. There was one obstetrician who gave me a really harrowing story of a woman who had been told or had been encouraged to have an abortion because her child had a disability, a cleft palate. And so, which is something that can be fixed, by the way, but maybe it was a very severe one, or maybe there was something a bit more to it than that. But they'd picked up this disability on the scans, urged her to have an abortion. She had a late-term abortion, the baby was induced, gave birth, and the baby was perfect. So she did comfort the baby until it died, because this is the thing, a lot of the time the babies after would just have terminal injuries from the way that they do it anyway, which is like a big needle into the stomach. But so this mother, after the baby had died, kept calling on her doctor to bring the baby back out to her to hold it, and because she just couldn't deal with with what had happened. So it leaves these, and that's a mother, and then for the midwives, it is nightmarish, the situation that they're left in, and it just wouldn't happen. You wouldn't be allowed to do this on a farm, for example. Like, there's no way that, not that anyone would also, because they value life, but like, there's no way that you would induce a cow, there's no way you induce like a pregnant heifer and then let the baby gasp to death. You would, even in agriculture practices, blunt force trauma is considered more humane than being allowed to just gasp until you die. So, and this is something that we saw, if you want to talk about what's humane and what's not, when you're talking about when we were talking about live sheep exports and what was halal and what wasn't, what the Australian standard of what was humane was a shock first, and then the death, so that the sheep isn't there gasping for breath, right? Yet this is what we're doing to babies, and some of them, as Louise said. And also, I do want to say, it wasn't, it was also the midwives and their submissions as well. They also said it. There were babies being left struggling to breathe with no pain relief, no morphine, for up to 24 hours. So if that was a kangaroo which had been hit by a car, for example, you just wouldn't let that happen. You know what I mean? Like, roadkill is treated better.
Yeah,
And that's
definitely.
That's what's so disturbing about this, and it's like they don't want us to have this conversation. The senators that spoke against it were saying, "Oh, we haven't had enough time to consider it." Well, how much time do you need? It's like there's this idea that it's, it's a Christian thing, or it's a Muslim thing. It's like, if you see someone kicking a dog, do you have to be religious to stop it? No,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
know, like, just it is something where there is so much which is happening in this space, where the anti-abortion, or the the pro-abortion lobby doesn't want people to know about it, because if they do, it draws everything else into question, which
Yeah.
is which is especially the late term abortions, for any reason.
Look, there's probably people listening to this thinking to themselves, what can I do? And I've been asking this question to different parliamentarians, whether they're members of parliament or people that have worked in parliaments. Like, what's the most effective thing for people to do when it relates to any issue, but specifically this issue? Should they just be emailing their local member of parliament and expressing their views on this issue, or is there other ways that would be more effective? Like, how people listening at home that really want to stop this or make a change, what can happen?
The only way to get parliamentarians to listen, the only time they will give a shit. Sorry. The only time that they will pay attention is when you rock up. You have to actually go there, and not go there like, you have to go to Parliament and be seen and be heard. And I know that it's really expensive for most people to get to
Are you talking
Canberra.
about like doing a protest outside of parliament?
Protests, yes. One of the most effective protests that we had was, I feel like it was the Australian Workers, TWU, Transport Workers Union, and they drove around Canberra just blasting the horns on their trucks just all day. And you were in that building and you were aware that there was anger out there. So that's the kind of thing. That's the only way they pay attention, is if their seat is in trouble. And the only way they care is if you come down and say, I will organize against you in your seat, and you will lose your seat. That is the only way to get them to care. We tried to get people to call David Pocock for, I'm trying to remember, it was a transmission line inquiry. We were trying to get up transmission line Tuesdays. And so we had all of these people who were being affected, and we said, okay, everyone who's calling us, call David Pocock, because he is the one vote that we need to get this inquiry up. He is the one person who's stopping it. Call his office. They just put it on, it's easy, they just put it on divert. They just send you to voicemail. Same as if you write I would say never write a form letter. And that's to anything. That's to an inquiry, that's to a submission, whatever. It must be original. So don't, I know it's hard, but don't use AI, don't use ChatGPT, don't use anything like that. Just write your own story from your perspective, and use other people's research and other people's data by all means, but it can't be a form letter, because form letters, again, just put to one pile and ignored. Even in submissions, if it's an inquiry, they'll just be counted as the one submission. If they are all similar, or if they're all the same. It must be different. It must be authentic. It must be original. And I think the other place which does get to them a little bit is social media. Most members, though, you have to understand, will have a team of staff working on their socials. So most offices will have, pretty much everyone in the office will have the login. And so if someone goes up and says, and makes an attack or says something that the minister or the member wouldn't like, there's someone back there who is quick to hide it. But that is somewhere where I think that members can be really sensitive, because a lot of them do look at their own sites, and they do pay attention to it, and to the feedback there. But again, the feedback only matters if it's in their electorate. If you are in inner city Melbourne, and you're saying, and you're writing on, the member for Flynn, Cole Boyce's account, and saying, no, we should all be vegan, and we should all have, we should never wash our hair and never use water. His office will just be like, lol, and leave it, because they're not going to care. But it's, if you want to make change, it has to be inside. You have to lobby your own member. It has to be someone inside your electorate that if you want any change, it has to be your member, because they will listen to you if you live there, and if you're a vote for them or you're not a vote for them, and if you can organize people against them or you can't. I mean, especially if you can organize people against them.
No, I think it's incredibly powerful advice that you're giving, because a lot of people just don't know what to do. They don't know how to contribute. So,
well, it's so hard, because the best way to do it is the way that most people can't, which is you fly down to Canberra, you give I mean, this is the thing. Most people can't do it, because if you're just a mum in New England, or you're just a mum in the central West Arana region, or in any of the places where this stuff is happening, or and I don't want to overly or you're just a regular person who has to go to school and pay bills and go to work, you can't just jump on a plane and go down to Canberra and walk around and get access into the building. That's the biggest thing. And then walk around and lobby parliamentarians. It just doesn't work like that. This is the great unfairness, is that all these renewable energy companies have lobbyists who have a little, I usually have it here. They have a little orange pass, which they can carry around, and they wear it around their neck. And it allows entry into all the doors. Pretty much anywhere I can go as a staffer, they can go as a lobbyist, which means they can access all the back rooms, all the halls, every single minister or member's office, and just walk in. Just walk in whenever. They don't need an appointment. I'm like serious. One of my girlfriends started working for one of the Labor ministers. And she has just started. She rang me and she was like, she couldn't believe it. She's like, I was sitting at my desk, and then this lobbyist was just in front of me. Are they allowed to do that? I'm like, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And so this is, and it, and like I've just become so used to it, but it was like when you had someone fresh who was also just a former journo rocking up and going in there, and she was just like, this is insane. Like she's there trying to write media responses or whatever. And here's this person leaning over her desk and saying, well, this is what we think that you should write. But the normal people who aren't paid to be there and who don't have, and there's this whole, sorry, I know I was on another thought there, but there's this whole ecology, this whole ecosystem surrounded by the lobbying industry in Canberra, which is like, if I were to fly down as a normal human being on a non-sitting week and get a hotel room, it's like, $180, right? You go down during a sitting week, which is when all the members and all the staff and all the lobbyists are flying in, and they're all walking around with their corporate travel card, with their corporate cards and their corporate credit cards and their corporate travel cards and the cab charges and all that. The cost of a hotel room goes up to like you're sharing a hotel room. It goes up to 290, 300, like unaffordable for normal people.
Yeah.
The whole industry there is just wild. And then normal people trying to access Parliament without a member of Parliament to so it's like if you go in there as a normal person, as Stephen Tripp,
Mm.
and then you ring me and you say, "Oh, can I come in? I just want to go around and I want to see a couple of members or senators." You have to get approval from one of those members or senators' offices. And then I have to go down and sign. So I can say, "Oh, look, my boss, Lou O'Brien, let's say he takes me back. I'll come down and sign you in under his office." Then, unlike the lobbyists can walk around Parliament by themselves doing whatever they want, but you will have to stay with me the whole time. So if you say, "Oh, well, I want to go see Alex Antic," I'll be like, "Okay, well, I have to escort you because you don't have an orange pass."
Yeah.
And so I'll have to take you to Alex's office. And you say, "Oh, well, I want to talk to Jared Rennick." "Oh, well, I'll have to take you there too." "Well, I want to go to see Jackie Lambie." "Well, that's another escort." So it's like, and so usually what happens is whichever office you go to, one of the other staffers will take you to the next spot. But it's just that's the disparity. That's how unfair it is.
I have two questions. Firstly, these lobbyists, do they have to be Australian citizens? I'm sure they're getting lobbied from multinational companies.
The
Maybe they
lobbyists,
fly.
I do not know. I would have to check that, to be honest. There is a strict like a code of conduct, but it is, and actually one of the things I'm going to be writing about soon is they're bringing in this new code though, which lobbyists, there's so many people who it does not apply to in terms of who has to behave in Parliament and who doesn't. And so this is all after the Jenkins review, which I don't know if your listeners are familiar with, but it was effectively what happened. There were allegations of rape that were made inside the building. It was not on a work night. It was at 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday, where two staffers had left the building, gone for drinks, and come back in the early hours of the morning. One alleged rape of the other one, and it just triggered a whole thing. Both of the parties are super litigious, so I'm not going to say anyone's name. I think we all know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But what that did was it triggered the Jenkins review, and which has come up with a whole suite of different rules for different people of how you are supposed to treat each other at Parliament, which is, it's sad that this is necessary because it's just like anywhere else, you know. But the thing is that because there are the lobbyists that come down, you know, you're talking about people who are, like I just said, massive salaries. These consultants were paid $48 million in a year. You know, they're billing.
Wait, hang on. Say that again. How much?
Well, this was just the consultants for Enco. They got $48 million in one financial
Oh, so not
year.
just one individual.
No, that wasn't just one group.
Okay.
But these guys were billing at like $750, $850 an hour. Is how much.
That ties into my other question. If I go out tomorrow and set up a lobby group, like, how is there a registration process or something where you have to prove, you know, a certain criteria of being able to get into the Parliament?
Yeah, there is. So you would have to go and you would have to register. So you'd have to complete the lobbyist registration. You would have to be sponsored by somebody. So you'll have to find a member or a senator to say, "Yep, Stephen's my guy. I'm allowing him in." You would have to have someone. I think you need at least one client before they'll let you in, but it can just be one client. You know, you can walk in and go, "Okay, I represent, you know, Energy Co. That's it," or I'm, you know, I'm here on behalf of this particular wind factory, and that would be fine. And this is the thing. Like, I've long said that lobbying should be restricted to your electorate. So So then if you want to lobby members about renewable energy projects, well, you've got to live in that electorate if you want to lobby them. And you can restrict one person, and that's your member, and that's your senators. You know, most states have 12, others, the territories have less, but just to like
Are all lobbyists bad? Because I mean, I said somewhere. Sorry.
I just got the number of senators wrong. I think it might be 6, not 12. Sorry. I have to Google it.
What, 6 per state, or?
I think it's 6 per state. Yeah, sorry.
It's 12 altogether, 6 per election.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Yep.
Except for this territory.
The territories are, I think, 2. So that's where it's crazy, where New South Wales will have 12 senators, and so will Tasmania.
Yes. So crazy. Yeah, sorry.
One of the things I said once was, all lobbyists should get banned, and I was attacked by the libertarians, which is always fun because I love getting attacked by the libertarians. Bring it on! But are they all bad? Like the lobbyists, are they all bad, or are they good lobbyists as well?
No, definitely they're not all bad. There's a lot of people who are just going. I think there's a lot of people who go in just off their own back for causes that are close to their heart. So there was there's so many people that I've met there who are just amazing. Like I think one is Julianne Finney. So she'll probably be in the news later today because she was the mum of a Navy veteran who committed suicide, and she was one of them. I met her when she was looking for help to get up a royal commission into veteran suicides. And my boss and Barnaby and a few others got together and threatened to cross the floor after I brought Julianne around and introduced her to a few people. And she was working with Heston Russell, and she was working with other veterans at the time. And the only reason she was there, all self-funded, she was there just because she was brokenhearted. And I think you do see a lot of that, of broken people who are there because they've lost the most important person to them, usually a child. And they're there because they want to bring about some kind of change, no matter what. And so, yeah, she's amazing. Julianne Finney, amazing woman. Obviously, the report for the veteran suicides is being handed down today. It would just be out now, actually, because it was being tabled after question time. So I'll have to go and read that. There's other women. There was a woman who lost her 4-year-old son, Thomas, when he walked out onto a road they were on holiday, and so and he walked out behind a car onto a road, and so she launched the Blue Dinosaur Foundation, and just would walk around from office to office. Here's some stickers. Here's some, I'm trying to raise awareness. If I can do anything to get this sign up in your council area, and it's like simple stuff like hold my hand, and it goes over a playground. And, because kids, I mean, you've got little kids and I've got little kids, and mine were particularly darty, just horrific. My
daughter doesn't even look. She just bolts off and doesn't stop. And she'd probably walk forever before she turns around and looks back.
Oh, it is.
You have to watch them constantly.
You have to, and you've got to hold their hands. And I said to her, and she wrote this book, and she was bringing it around. I said to her, I don't know what to do with my kids because they just pull out. And she showed me this grip. She's like, she showed me this grip. She said, this is what the police use. And so it's basically what I'm doing. I'm just putting my 2 fingers over and my thumb over your wrist. And so you just do that, and you hold them, and that's what the police tell you to use if you've got a child that could be running out onto a car park, and car parks are particularly dangerous areas. People you can get more scared about a highway because everyone's going very fast, but it's the car parks which are actually the most dangerous places, because cars, and this is why I drum into my kids all the time, cars can't see you. So that's Michelle, Little Blue Dinosaur Foundation. She was incredible. Who else? Like but it's usually, you get these, there's people who come down not because they want to make a buck, not because there's a lot of people who go down and they just see politicians as walking ATMs. And those are the ones who I would put in that category of, which I find kind of insufferable. But there is a group that just want to go down, and who do so on their own dollar, and often they're not fundraised or supported in any way by any other human, but they're just going down doing this because they've lost a kid, they've lost a child, and I think in some cases it's like because they've never been able to forgive themselves, and I think and in others it's just how it's about their legacy, the legacy of their loved ones, and that's why they push it. So I think people do go down for the right reasons as well. But the problem is that there is this gap, and it is getting worse. This massive gap between people and their politicians, and I really feel like I worked in politics for 10 years, so between 2014 and 2024 at state and federal levels. I worked for deputy prime ministers, deputy premiers before that. And I really do feel like at the moment, especially since COVID, there's just a massive amount of distrust. And it's between the bureaucrats and the politicians, and between the people and the politicians. I think that locking us in our own homes situation has just caused this massive gap. I don't know if it'll ever get better, because now it's like we're seeing the same thing now, where they're saying, you're being told one thing before, you must stay at home or you're going to kill a grandma. And now it's you must not eat meat or the world will burn. You must use solar and wind or the world will burn. This is so I am worried very much that they are sheltered off. Everything about their lives at a ministerial level is completely removed from the general public. So, like, for example, if a politician, so yesterday I dropped Barnaby off to Parliament.
So that's just for people that don't know, that's Barnaby Joyce, the former deputy prime minister.
Yeah. So we live on a farm. I drive him to the airport. I drop him off at the airport. As a member of Parliament, he's got to go through the normal airport, see people, talk to people, and then get on a commercial flight and fly to Canberra, where he'll fly to Sydney, where he'll see more normal people. Then he'll fly to Canberra. We all know what happens there. But once he gets there, and once he goes inside that building, he doesn't have to see any normal people. It's like there's, once they're there, they can't go to the shop. They have to be in the building at about 7 a.m. and they don't leave until the house rises, which during the coalition was often not until 11, 12 at night. Labor have been a bit better. They've got like their family friendly hours. So they have
got to get something right.
Yeah, that's right. So they've been rising at about at about 8 p.m. But you've got to, but there's 12 hours that you can't leave. You can't go to, the supermarket and grab anything. You're stuck in that office and you're completely restricted from the rest of the world. On an office on a hill in the middle of nowhere, right? Like your closest supermarket is like probably Monaco, which is like 15, 20 minutes away if you can get a car park. So if you're a minister, this is your journey. You get a comm car. So it's one chauffeured driver. He picks you up at your house. He drives you to your private flight, which is called the VIP or the RAF. So you hop onto the VIP. You're flown directly from wherever you are to Canberra Airport, where you have your own exit. You don't have to interact with another soul at any point. So this is what Richard Marles is doing. This is what Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister, do. Then you get into another chauffeured car. Then they take you to Parliament through your own special car park and your own special entry to your own special courtyard to your own special office. And that's what can happen, where people can just become so disconnected. I even think that Chairman's Lounge has that problem as well, just in the normal airports. So in the normal airports, both Virgin and Qantas offer like exclusive lounge access for members of the judiciary and certain politicians. I think you have to. I think state you have to be a minister, but in federal you can just be an MP. And so even if at the airport, which is where all of them have to go to Canberra or Sydney or Brisbane or wherever their parliament is, if you're a state MP, they can just disappear up into the lounge and be happily disconnected from the people flying those Tiger flights or those Bonza flights who are both now defunct, or the Rex flights or the Qantas flight or the Qantas country flights. You're so disconnected from it, and it's like I noticed. This is how I noticed. So my partner was a minister for a while we had 2 small children.
Mm.
Who do you think the kids like flying with, mummy or daddy? So the kids are like, we love flying, we love planes. I'm like, not with me, you won't. Because I'm not, if you're flying with me, babe, we're going on Jetstar to Cairns because that's where I'm from, to see grandma and granddad. And it's a big difference to the experience that they had flying to Canberra with him, where, if you're on this VIP, they're bringing you out, a breakfast service. They're bringing you out. I mean, they told me they were getting toys and treats and all sorts of things. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's part of the problem, is that people can get really disconnected really easily, and it is so important for them to be out in their electorate. But there's no metrics on that. Like some members are really, really hardworking, and every day they will be out. But others will just not. Like, they just won't. There's no metric saying you have to meet with this many constituents. There's nothing that says that. There's nothing that says you have to go to every town in your electorate and talk to all the local businesses. And some electorates are freaking massive.
Yeah.
Like Durack, I think is the biggest in Western Australia, and you need to have a charter plane to get around. Kennedy, which is my home electorate in Far North Queensland, as well, is huge. And so you can't argue that people in Durack or Kennedy are getting the same representation as people in Wentworth or in Warringah. Where in Wentworth you can walk the boundary, in a couple of hours, done. So there is this massive disconnect. I think, especially once they get in and they start being treated differently, and you see I've seen it a couple of times where before they get in, the before and after experience.
Transformation.
Yeah. Because, I've worked with them as a candidate or, before.
Yeah.
And then after, and it's like, oh, okay. So,
well, look, I think people were, they're kind of subliminally aware of that, But
Mm.
to hear you actually articulate it is just another level and another layer of it all. One of the questions I wanted to squeeze in, I'm conscious of the time, but I wanted to talk to you about journalism as well, because it's equally as important as, our parliamentarians having, a face-to-face with the electorate. Well, the journalists are meant to hold the parliamentarians accountable. And when I was growing up, it was far more objective than it is these days, or at least that's what it appears to be. What's your opinion of the state of journalism currently? And if you do have a negative view of journalism, is there any way that we can reform it?
I have such a negative view of journalism. I mean, it's the same thing, right? Where normal people can't contact, normal people can't just walk into, like, this is the other thing. In Canberra, everything is the same in Parliament. Everything is in Parliament. So your dinner service is there, your gym is there, your swimming pool is there, your office is there, the chamber where you vote is there, and then your press gallery is right there as well. So if you want to put what your spin on things out there, all you have to do is go out to your friendly journos in your press gallery. It's got where there's a whole bunch of ABC reporters and not a whole lot of anyone else. I think that there is 2 federal reporters for the entire of News Corp now, and that oh no, sorry, that's for the tabloids. The Oz have their own bureau still, but just the number of journalists is steadily decreasing. The some of the journalists that I talk to now, just they said that we are getting thousands of emails a day. There is no way that we can do the stories that people are telling us because we are just getting so many of them. There's also there's also that skill in journalism, which is how to pick a story or how to find a story. And you're increasingly seeing this reliance of people to report what they saw on people say in the comments, so like, 2 people, so the story is not what's happening and a critical analysis of a policy. The story is, this anonymous user 21 said, well, this is stupid because blah. It's like, what? So we are seeing this like increasing dumbing down, and just a reluctance for journalists to go out and talk to real people. So just in terms of the renewable stuff, when I was just helping other communities, just as a volunteer, and I was just like going through my contact book and saying, talk to such and such, here's such and such's number from The Guardian, here's such and such's number from the ABC, here's such and such from the SMH. And this was all like environment reporters. And it was about this particular story that we were trying to pitch was from a biodiversity expert talking about the number of endangered animals on the minister's endangered animals threatened species list, which were under threat by this particular wind development. No interest. If it was a coal mine, they would have. And the person who was saying to them, I've got these issues, was a biodiversity expert. So it was a qualified person, and and stuff like they would do stuff. Oh yeah, we'll call you back. We'll call you back. Oh, it's a good story. Yeah, we'll call you back. We'll call you back. And then that phone call would just never come.
Well, one of the things I love doing on this podcast is reading crikey articles. Just to show like how far down the other end of the spectrum they are. Yes. I mean, is that something that concerns you, that there's no objectivity anymore? Like there's one narrative and then there's a completely other narrative from another news source.
Yeah. No, I think, I mean, I was brought up, like, as a journalist 20 years ago, right? So I had a very different beginning in journalism. You know, I still do shorthand, I still use a notepad. Like, I'm a total freak. There's now I think that I I think that there's been the death of regional media is probably the worst thing that's happened. Um, just because that often, like, your little country papers were the ones that could just be very, you know, didn't really have they didn't have an agenda, or if they had a bias or if they had an agenda, it was parochial. You know what I
Mm.
mean? We support this town no matter what. I think that's what we were. Um, where, you know, when I was a journalist in the Tablelands and in Townsville, it was very much, we are for this area. We are campaigning for this place to be better, and for, you know, blah blah blah, XYZ, whatever it was that we needed. It was usually health stuff, hospital stuff. Um, you know, the ability to give birth locally, stuff like that. Nowadays, there's, because of the death of regional media, so much of it, you're not seeing that anymore. And also because there's not enough regional media, there's no regional journalists. So the vast majority of journalists are in the postcodes in Melbourne, Sydney, and Canberra. So even getting the reality of a story from someone's life in Broken Hill, getting the reality of someone's life in Alice Springs, or you know, just any country regional area, is a lot more difficult. And then because of that, because the journos that are coming up are metro based, metro mainly, they have no empathy for the bush because they've never lived it. You know, and that was something I felt even when I was in the Telegraph, when I moved to Sydney from Far North Queensland as a journalist, down there, and I was, I would hear views within the newsroom, and I was just like, "You guys have no idea." Like, I think it was during $12 banana time. Do you remember that? It was like cyclone after Cyclone Larry.
Yep.
And I was in a metropolitan newsroom, and they were going, "Oh, no, it wasn't Larry. It must have been Yahtzee." Anyway, but they were talking about the $12 bananas, and they were like, "These farmers ripping us off." And I'm just like, you understand that everyone has lost their farm. Like, everyone has lost any way that they'll be able to feed themselves or their family or anything. Like, you can't insure you can't insure it. Like, that I can't insure a cow out there. You know, if one of them dies, that's it. You know, we wear that.
Yeah.
I wear that. And
And
so there's
I heard there's thieves as well that go around stealing cows. Is that?
we had this the other night, rustlers. It's actually really scary. Yeah, so we've got the muster that I don't know if you heard earlier on, one of the musterers was yelling out for me, but we have the musterers here now. They're trying to do a big muster up of the place because we had poachers come on and try and get stock, and we don't know what was taken and what wasn't. But yeah,
Look,
so
look, I think I could probably talk to you all day about this stuff because I mean, some of these issues that we've talked about today are very complex, and especially with the renewable stuff, like, it's such a vast issue. I mean, there's so many different layers to it and everything, but you've been very honest with your insights, and I think that's been incredibly important. So thank you for that. There is one final segment that's very, very important.
I know.
Now, Vikki, you're in charge of the next Parliament of Australia, and you get to choose 5 or 6 people. They can be living or dead. They can be anyone. They don't have to be politicians. But it's called Build Your Own Fantasy Government, and you're in control. So 5 or 6 people to head up the next Parliament of Australia. Who do you choose?
Uh, um, Okay. I don't know if you're going to know them.
Okay, well that's all right. It's
Uh,
completely up to you. It can be your next door neighbor if you wanted it to.
I think Katie McCullum is a huge superstar. So she's the
Yep.
One Nation member for Gympie, but I met her early on with Kilkeevan, with the renewables rollout.
Kilkeevan and Action Group and everything
Yes.
she's doing up there. Yeah.
And I think that she is just tapped in, really smart, dynamo, energetic, which is something that you need just in spades to do that. I think Katie McCallum. I think it's so hard. This is such a hard question.
Should have given you some. I get told by people I should give them notice, but I like to just
living or dead.
I like to get the initial reaction.
Okay. All right. Katie. Okay. So Katie would be energy. I'd put Stephen Nowakowski on as environment minister. Nowakowski. I can never say his last name. Nowakowski.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's Rainforest Reserves Australia. Follow him on YouTube. He's amazing. He could be environment minister. I think Treasury. I would have. Treasury would be Matt Canavan because he's got some really great policies on income splitting, which would make it a lot easier to have a family. I think energy. Have I said energy?
I think so. I think that's where you
Oh,
put
we've done energy. I'm obsessed with energy. I would not have a climate change minister. I know that. I would not have
or a climate change department, or the 10 of the departments.
Arena's gone, CFEC's gone, all of that crap is gone. The billions of dollars we would save. I think I would like who else? Living or dead? Joe Bjelke-Peterson back. Because that was a man who could get things done.
Yeah.
Probably, and he could do infrastructure and housing.
There's a clip. I wish I had it. There's a clip of him answering his phone just from everyday people. He was the premier at the time, and you could call him, and he would answer and take your call. How crazy is that?
This is what they should be doing now, though. This is what they should be doing now.
Yeah.
I mean, God. And I think you need a really smart hand in defense. So Jim Molan, if he could, I think he was the greatest loss, to the government, or just the greatest loss to public life of recent times. And I think he'd have to be defense minister. And then I think for ag, it'd be really good to have just like an actual farmer who's run shit country and who knows how hard it is to do it. Because some people, if you're just giving it away to wind and solar, you don't have an understanding really of what you're doing. So I'd like a farmer that likes to feed people. So that would be probably Hamish McLaren, who is my neighbour.
There you go. I've been waiting for it. I keep saying it. Pick your neighbours. So someone.
Yeah. Because he's just, he's someone who does, he does sheep, he does merinos, so he does fleece, fiber, and meat, and just has a real love for it, and and knows how important it is. And he's lost his arm when he was when he was getting out of a helicopter, and he runs the whole farm with one arm. Isn't that great? He is a truly inspirational dude. But that, I've got other people just, oh man, just I have a large community that I draw on for my columns as well. Just people, just people that I meet and I just think, I wonder what, when this happened, I wonder what such and such thinks of that. And I wonder what this grandma who I met that lives out the back of Kentucky, I wonder what she thinks about that. And so that's my first port of call usually with this stuff, because if you read the talking points from Coalition Central, if you read the talking points from the government, you can be there going, holy God, I am in crazy town. Like, I think I am the only one that thinks this way. But then when you go and you're just talking to other just normal people, rural, particularly rural women is who I mainly speak to, just because, that's where I live. And then you're like, oh, hang on, no, I'm not crazy. It is a terrible thing to have an aborted baby left to die in a metal dish. But if you're just reading the press releases, if you're just reading the media releases and the corporatized lobbyists spin and the ministerial media releases and stuff like that, you can fall into that trap of going, oh no, I'm the outlier here. I don't believe this. And I think that's where stuff like what you're doing is so important, because it makes people realize that they're not alone in what they think.
Yeah, I do get that feedback from people. I mean, they really appreciate just that aspect of things, being able to just to know that someone is talking about them and giving them a platform sometimes, just because they do feel isolated, they do feel shut down, they do try and contact them, local media or bigger media outlets, and they get pushed back or just completely blocked. So, I'm not the only one out there doing this sort of stuff, but these platforms, these podcasting platforms are really, really important to people.
I think increasingly so now. Every time when I leave this four walls, the only thing that I have out there is me and ABC radio. And I have to, drive my kids to school listening to how all the strawberries are gone because of climate change. And I'm there going, not true, not true. All the bees are gone because of climate change. I'm like, just walk outside.
Yeah.
It's like there is so much they don't know because they never leave Ultimo or they never leave Parramatta. And you can't profess to have an insight into the environment when you're so far removed from anything.
Look, as open-minded as I am, I've always lived in Sydney. I don't know a lot about this stuff. I've been on this journey learning from rural people what they're faced with. I mean, I have no idea what's going on, and I want to learn. I want to know. But for other entitled people, whether they be journalists or politicians who think they're above everyone, they're not even going to investigate it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, Sydney is I don't want to unnecessarily shit on Sydney either. Sydney is a great place to live. It is so beautiful, and it is it is so much fun. It is so much fun.
Yeah, but it's just the pure the situation of you focus on the area that you're in, where you've lived or where you grew up. I mean, you adapt to that area, and you don't know what's going on elsewhere, in other states or around the world.
No, exactly. It is well, man, and that's why I think stuff like this is so valuable, because you are putting stuff out there. There's a particularly ABC annoys me so much, because particularly that ABC, like when they come out here, it's like, oh, look at this quaint, cute town, and look at all these cute little coffee shops, and isn't this cute? And it's like, no, there is the only reason that coffee shop exists is because of everyone out there in places like this, dirty, broken fingernails, the hands on these men just like gnarled and enormous, and just the sheer strength that they've got, because these are manual people, work with their hands, and they get around and they're ripped, and they're strong, and you feel it's like it's a weird. The difference is it's like you don't feel threatened, it's like these are blokes who, when, I'll be driving the kids to school and get a blowout, and and have a tire go down, burst, whatever.
Flat tire. Yeah.
Flat tire. I had 2 last night, so I should know. And they will like come out of their houses 7:00 in the morning. They'll have a dart in one hand and an instant coffee in the other, and they just will help.
Yeah.
And it's like, if that was Sydney, or if I was doing this in Greek Street Glebe, I don't know who would come and help. I don't know if anyone would. I don't know if anyone in my old building would know how to change a tire. So that's, you do get this amazing quality of men here, amazing quality of men, like strong men, smart men, and men who know how to work with their hands and fix things. And and there's never, you don't feel, there's never, I've never felt threatened at any point, even though there's no one here for a very, very long walk.
Now you're going to have an influx of Sydney women, single women from Sydney coming out.
Come, I can hook you up. I've tried. I say this to my single Sydney friends. They're like, everyone sucks here. I'm like, come, but they're like, no, it's too far away. I'm like, well.
Yeah. Oh well. Look, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to send a clip of you picking Katie McCallum as your first pick. I'm going to send it to Katie because I know she's going to feel amazing about that. And then the second thing I'm going to do, I'm going to send the clip to. I'm somehow going to get it to Barnaby and let him know that you let him off, that you left him off the list.
All right, I'll put take.
Yeah,
he can be a shadow minister. He can be assistant. He can be minister for.
He can be the cleaner or something like that.
No. Well, I don't know. He could be.
How about Prime Minister?
There you go. He can be the Prime Minister. There you go. You'll be happy with that.
Very good. Very good.
Then he just has to walk around and look good.
Well, one thing I do want to point out, I was at a meeting, a local community meeting yesterday, and I was speaking to a lady there named Rachel, who's a nurse, and her sister is a midwife. So they've passed on this website. We were talking about the abortion issue before. This is a website called First Steps. It provides pregnancy support. Now, this is just for people in the ACT and Queanbeyan. It's fsps.org.au, and they basically offer support and care for women that are considering abortions, and they just, give you alternatives of what you could possibly do if you are in that situation. So I think that's incredibly important for people. As I said, it's only in Queanbeyan and the ACT, but the point is, I'm sure there's other groups out there in different areas around Australia. If you are facing this issue, please get in contact, or just do a search, or even call First Steps. I'm sure they've got other contacts around the country as well. So I just wanted to point that out because, I mean, as I said before, a lot of the issues that we talked about today are very complex, and a lot of people that might be watching this are facing those issues head on. So I think that's important. Also, if you want to follow Vikki, she has a website, vikkicampion.com.au. So check out her website.
Thanks so much. I need to redo all of this stuff. So yeah.
But I'm sure she'll be popping up on social media as well. And I can't wait for the Vikki Campion podcast. I'm sure that will be amazing one day. So
one day.
Yeah,
I need to get everything in order.
Yeah. But look, Thank you, Vikki. I think your insights today, specifically about what happens in Parliament and with journalism as well, incredibly insightful and important to people. And thank you for everything that you're doing. I know you work very hard when it comes to the renewable energy side of things, or pushing back against it, and all your columns that you write in the Daily Telegraph or Sunday Telegraph or wherever they pop up now. It's really good stuff. So thank you for coming on today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Stephen. Thank you so much for doing what you do.
No problem. And look, I say it every single time. If you've enjoyed this, please share it out. We do rely on the audience to get these podcasts out to wherever they need to go. So please share, and also subscribe. Sign up to the website, commandingthenarrative.com, and get our weekly newsletter, and head to Rumble and follow all our videos there. Don't rely on Facebook or YouTube or any of those platforms that are just going to censor us and ban us or whatever it is, depending on the week. But thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.